At this time, I'd like to welcome you to session number 13 in our series of videos that have been designed to help you look at life from a more spiritual point of view. In this session, we will look at some guideposts that are there to help you and to help us all along the way. We'll ask this question: have our institutions and belief systems done their job? I believe that they've made a significant positive difference in some instances and have hindered us in others. Nevertheless, in many ways, we've made a great deal of progress over the millennia. But any thinking person would have to agree that tremendous changes for the better are needed if we are to ever begin to realize the full potential, and I'm speaking now about the spiritual potential for the most part, that is within humankind. We can now consider some of the information and the means that will help us to realize that potential. Well, maybe we can start by asking, what is the world coming to? Probably ask yourself that question. There are major questions to be answered. Where do we go from here? Where are we headed? How do we get from here to there? What is the world coming to? These are all very good questions, and let us now try to provide some answers. One macrocosmic way to answer the last question, what the world is coming to, is to say that our world, the Earth, is moving around the Sun at a rate of once every 365 1/4 days. Our Sun, bringing us with it, is traveling around a star in the Pleiades called Alcyone. Does that name sound familiar to you from a few years back? Perhaps as the name of a ship? Now, one complete cycle around Alcyone encompasses the completion of 12 of what are called ages, which are 2,160 years each. So 12 of those would be a total of 25,920 years. Now, Alcyone, in turn, bringing our Sun and us with it, is traveling around a great central sun. The time for that trip takes 10 of the cycles that are 12 ages each, or 10 of the 25,920 year cycles. This information is ably provided in the book called The 7 Rays of the QBL by a man who called himself Frater Albertus. If you would like an answer that looks at that same question from a more microcosmic point of view, then the answer is not likely to bring cheer to any of you who are discouraged, depressed, downhearted, or disgusted with the world's current condition. Although we've entered the tunnel spoken of previously, it's gratifying to report that there is light, beautiful light, at the end of that tunnel. Unhappily, though, we're not in that light yet. In fact, it would be more accurate to state that we're not so very far past the beginning of that long, dark tunnel which we entered on September 11, 2001. That tunnel was made even darker by the worldwide financial crisis of 2008. We will discuss this tunnel and the light at its end in greater detail a little later. Perhaps this would be a good time to say more about the subject of light, since it plays such an important role in our spiritual development. The word light has been used to convey a number of different meanings in the English language. It has more recently been used as an indicator of a lack of weightiness or seriousness regarding certain subjects of discussion, such as a light, as opposed to heavy, topic of conversation. Of course, the weight of an object to be carried can be light or the opposite, heavy. In addition, the word can be used to indicate a condition of visibility if there is sufficient light to enable one to see, or a lack of visibility if there is not sufficient light to enable one to see. Related to this latter, more common usage, light is considered as a form of radiant energy that travels at a speed of 186,000 miles per second and illuminates darkness. Along that line of thought, this same word, but now beginning with a capital L, can be a means of expressing spiritual light, spiritual insight, or even spiritual understanding, as in the statement, "I see the light," or "I seek to serve the greater light." Use of the word in this manner specifically implies illumination by spiritual light and indicates a connection with the divine. God's spiritual light illuminates the darkness of the unknown, especially spiritual darkness, as we travel the long and sometimes difficult road on our journey through this life. If you have ever wondered which is more powerful, light with a capital L or darkness with a capital D, be aware that negative forces have been given some latitude here on this physical plane, this material world, as is attested to by the current conditions on our planet. These forces can at times be allowed by positive forces to be quite powerful. Even here, though, on the physical plane, there's a simple test that you can perform. If you've ever wondered which is the more powerful, and that test will tell you all you need to know regarding which is the source of real power. The test has two parts. Part 1 will certainly seem silly to you, but when taken with Part 2, together they make the point. First, if you walk into a well-lighted room with a container of any size, made in such a way that light cannot penetrate, so that you know that inside the container it is dark. Open the container and release the darkness and notice if the room becomes any darker. Naturally, it does not, because darkness will not overpower light. Next, for Part 2 of the test, darken a room completely. Then light a candle of any size and take it into the dark room. Does the room become less dark? Of course it does. If light with a lowercase l has this much power over darkness with a lowercase d, think how much more so spiritual light with a capital L does so over spiritual darkness with a capital D. There are other examples of the power of light over darkness. One that comes to mind is in the beginning of the book of Job in the Old Testament portion of the Judeo-Christian Bible. There, Satan can only approach Job with God's permission, and even then only within the restrictions outlined by God. This example is not there by accident, and neither is the one that we will mention here now. Excuse me. In Milton's inspired works Paradise Lost and Paradise Regained, you see Satan once again needing God's permission before being allowed certain access. You should not, however, allow these examples to mislead you into believing that no harm can ever come to you from negative forces. If your current life or a previous incarnation has been one that includes negative or harmful acts toward others, or lack of caring or compassion for others, or any such indication that your understanding of these matters is less than complete, then you may have negative forces being allowed to test or tempt you to administer some of the karmic lessons that you have need to learn. This is done, of course, so that you can have the opportunity to learn those needed lessons so you can make wiser choices in the future. It should also be noted here that one should never, never give permission to darkness with a capital D to come into your life, or invite that darkness, which is virtually the same thing. The consequences of doing so could be devastating. Can you begin to see that there are very good reasons for living by the golden rule? This is not intended to mean that the one who has the gold makes the rules. The pendulum has already swung much too far in that direction. We must return to the way of life that subscribes to the idea of treating others the way that we would want to be treated. Too many people today tend to believe that such thinking is outdated and that we should instead do unto others before they do unto us. They believe such nonsense because they do not understand karmic law. Since they don't always see it working and no longer understand the concept of reincarnation, they don't believe that there is such a thing as the law of karma about which they need to be concerned. It's for this reason that too many of the world's population continue to lie, cheat, steal, assault, or kill, or perhaps even worse yet, a combination of these things, without any thought of the fact that they're bringing these same terrible acts inevitably back upon themselves. Those who understand cosmic law and who see such things happening every day cannot help but be deeply saddened at what they know will be the result. Remember, always remember that as we sow, so shall we reap. This speaker has no doubt that this planet and those of us who make it our home would benefit greatly if we would all seek to serve the greater light. If that idea sounds good to you also, there might be no time like the present to get started. There's enough information within this series of videos and within the pages of the books from our list of book titles which we recommend reading, and which list will be given in a later video session, to help you make a respectable start on that journey. Just remember, however, that cosmic law tells us, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Ask and it shall be given to you. So be very careful what you ask for. Seek and ye shall find. Let me assure you that these concepts should not be taken lightly. There are some I know who doubt that the law just stated actually works as described here. Some have told me that you have asked, sought, and knocked, but nothing happened, and you want to know why. I've generally responded by telling folks that one of the first things for you to examine is this. What kinds of things have you been asking and seeking, and what has been your motivation for doing so? Are you seeking to improve your fortune or increase your ownership of material things? If that is the case, then that's probably not the highest path for you, or for any true seeker. Is there any possibility that ego, or anything self-serving, or anything that could harm or take advantage of another, might be involved in any way? I don't intend any offense by suggesting these are areas to consider. My intent is only to help you to be certain that you're asking and knocking for and seeking the right things for the right reasons. If so, then there are other things that you can consider. You may not be ready for that for which you have asked. If that is so, then it's a blessing to you that it's not received. Later in this life, some of the things may yet come if you have originally asked for the right things in the right way and for the right reasons. There is also the possibility that the thing for which you have asked may seem very appealing at the time, but your own higher self or other higher positive forces may know that at a later date you may realize that having it is not in your best interest, and they bless you by keeping it away. If so, that's truly a blessing, because some of us get that for which we ask, and at times later find that we've made a very unwise decision by asking injudiciously. It may also be that you have expected that the response would come in a certain form, or from a certain source, or at a certain time, when in fact it could have come and gone, being missed without your realizing it, because you were focused on one way of thinking regarding how the response would come, and it came by another. If you're seeking first to experience spiritual growth, or to have greater understanding of spiritual things, and such things are your primary motivation to help you to serve more perfectly, then they will come when your unseen spiritual guide or guides knows that the time is right for you. Now this may all seem very complex, but the point that I want to make is that if you seek, ask, or knock in a way that is less and less for self, and more for the sake of serving higher positive forces, and indirectly in that way for the fellow human beings, and if you do not place limits on where or when or how your response should come, and then you're willing to let their will be done, are you getting the idea? If you're already doing these things in this way, and please examine it carefully so you don't answer I am too quickly, then there may be one other method that could help. Ask that you be guided to recognize the response or answer that is given to you, or that you be guided to recognize the right path to take, and that these things be done in such a way that you cannot possibly misunderstand what to do. Then be watchful from all sources. In other words, keep your eyes and ears open. I'll caution you, however, that if you take this latter course, the results may sometimes be rather dramatic. I hope, though, that this has given you a greater understanding of these matters, and perhaps some additional things to think about that will be of benefit to you. I want to thank you for watching this session, and session 14. The next one will talk more about the light at the end of the tunnel. Again, thank you.